Okay.
Yes.
Good morning, one and all present here. Myself, Srinivas Babu Ed, Assistant Professor, Department of ECE. Host for the today's webinar being jointly organized by Department of Triple E and Department of ECE, sponsored by IETE. Now, I request our beloved Professor and Head of the Department, Professor Vijay Bharti M, Department of ECE, to welcome the gathering. Baby ma'am?
Oh,
Madam.
Yes.
thank you, Srinivas. So, I myself, Vijayabharti, heading the Department of Electronics and Communication from Dr. T. Timaya Institute of Technology. I take great pleasure in presenting today's giving welcome speech for this webinar on FPGA based array controller for active phased array radar. So a very good morning to one and all. On behalf of President, Management, Principal, Vice Principal, Dean, Ma'am, I welcome today's speaker, Mr. Amit Goyal, Scientist E at LRDE for this today's webinar. I also welcome HOD of EEE Department, faculties of EC Department, EEE Department, and students' friends. I also welcome IETE Bangalore Chapter President, Secretary, and other members of IETE for giving us an opportunity to conduct this program under IETE banner. I take great pleasure in welcoming Dr. Palniswamy sir for taking initiation and organizing the program, and Mrs. Imbalata for coordinating the webinar, today's webinar. I speak a few words about today's topic. The today's topic for webinar meets the requirements of digital world where communication play a vital role. As the topic a controller for active phased array radar. That is, by this webinar, we have the knowledge that we can adopt ourselves requirements in a short time. Time environment of FPGA where the onboard programming is possible. Okay, so I welcome once again all the participants for this webinar. Also welcome again Mr. Amit Goyal sir for today's webinar as the speaker. I hope all the students will make efficient use of this webinar and explore the field on which you're going to listen. Thank you one and all.
Thank you, madam. Now, I would like to call up Mrs. Imbalata K, Associate Professor, Department of ECE, to give brief introduction about our today's chief guest for the webinar. Madam, not audible, madam.
Good morning, sir. Is it audible now?
Yes,
ma'am. Audible.
Yeah. Good morning, one and all. I'm Professor Invilata here from ECE department, and I take this privilege to introduce the speaker, Mr. Amit Goyal, who is going to present today webinar, one-day webinar on FPGA-based phased control array. So, good morning, sir. So Amit Goyal received the BTech degree in electrical engineering from KNIT Sultanpur, India in 2006, and he was awarded MTech degree in integrated circuits and systems from IIT Madras in 2018, and presently he is working as a scientist in LRDE Bangalore since 2007, where he has predominantly working on the design development of digital system for phased array systems. And his research interest includes EDA tools for chip and low power circuit design. His current responsibilities includes design, development, and realization of FPGA-based array controller for beam steering network and digital receiver waveform generation, integration, and testing of phased array antenna. And moreover, Sir has authored technical papers published in various IEEE conferences. And he has received Technology Group Award for his contribution in realization of first active phased array radar of India. Thank you, sir, for giving me this opportunity to introduce the speaker.
Thank you, madam.
Thank you. Okay.
Now I request our today's resource person, Mr. Amit Goyal, sir, scientist, grade E, LRDE, Bengaluru, to address the gathering.
Sir, Amit Goyal, sir.
Sir, sir, sharing the screen, sir.
Madam, you just pin him.
Okay.
Pin his name. Please. Hello, sir. I am Palnicham speaking, sir. You can. What, sir? You cannot able to share the screen, sir. Sir, once again you rejoin, sir. Please go out and rejoin, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Madam. Now we can able to view, sir. Now we can able to view you. Hello. Sir?
Sir,
Tell madam.
sir,
Tell
if
madam.
sir is not able to share the screen, let's share. Sir, send the PPT, sir. We can share now, sir.
Okay, madam. Okay, madam. I will ask him.
Uh,
Hello, sir. Sir, can you please send your PPT? We will share from here. You can talk. Just send to my WhatsApp or yes, sir. Yes. Sir, sir, can you able to hear me? Can you able to hear me?
Sir, Palaniswamy, sir.
Tell madam.
Sir, voice is only not receiving. We are not receiving.
Yes, madam.
Sir is speaking something, but we are not able to receive it.
Yes, madam. Yes, madam. Hello, sir. Sir, can you follow, sir, can you please follow what I am telling, sir? I think you may get the screen. Sir, you just get into the present now. You see, you see the present now screen, sir. Just you go, sir. You go and you see, you press that window, A window. In that window, you can see your screen, your presentation. Otherwise, sir, you go there. First, you open your screen, sir. Just you open your presentation window in the desktop. Then you go there. Open, sir. Now you go to that window and see, sir. Present, now you go and open the window. It is come, sir. Now you click that and share it. Now it is coming, sir. We can able to view. Yes, sir. Now you enlarge it, the screen. Now you enlarge the screens. Yes, sir. I think now it is visible, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
But sir, voice is not, we are not receiving.
Yeah, voice is visible, sir. Voice is audible, but can you able to hear me? Can you able to hear me?
Hello, you are able to hear me, sir?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes,
We can able to hear you. Now it is okay.
Sir.
Sir, now you enlarge.
So I will
now you enlarge the screen.
so I have already enlarged it.
Presentation mode, sir. Presentation mode.
So I will start my presentation,
Okay,
sir. Good morning to all of you, to HOD sir, to teacher, and to to all the dear students. I am very happy to get an opportunity to present my work which we do at LRD. So, a topic for the presentation of today's FPGA based array controller for the active phased array radar. So here is the agenda. First, I will talk about phased array, what is phased array and how the phased array works. Then I will give a brief introduction of the FPGA because this array controller works on the FPGA. Then I will talk about what is array controller. So then I will be telling about why we want array controller, what is array controller, and how the array controller works. Then I will take a case study, and then I will talk about new technologies and new improvement which we are attempting at our place and at the world also. So phased array. So phased array is basically to get for certain applications we will have only a single antenna, will not be able to meet the gain requirement. So we need to get many of the single this element to form an array that can provide us the proper gain and the radiation pattern which we require for our purpose. So what we do, we'll have so as we have antenna elements, so that can be arranged in two-dimensional. So two-dimensional that here means that we are talking about the x direction and the y direction. So in this way, we will be able to achieve the required gain, and whatever the radar, whatever the antenna parameters, just like that, for antenna parameter, we need to have a gain, a proper side lobes, a proper directivity, and in this way, we will be able to achieve the proper shape and the direction in which we want to have our beam to be placed. These all the radars do the electronically beam scanning. What it means that will not be physically moving the radar. It is only the beam that is being moved. For this purpose, we'll be using a phase shifters that will do the phase shifting of the beam in the desired location, as we need to have the side lobes to be less. So we will be using an amplitude tapering to get a proper side lobes and the gain and the directivity. So what is the necessity to have a phased array? Because previously when you will be seeing it at the airport also, you will see one of the radar that is always revolving. So that is a mechanically scanned. So what it becomes limitation in the mechanically scanning is the position. We will not be able to move our beam at an instant. It will take its own time. It will all depend upon the motor speed. So that can be from 7.5 RPM to 15 RPM to 30 RPM. This all depends on what is the speed is there at the motor that is being run, and then we'll be able to get an update rate. So always we will be having mechanical errors. Mechanical errors usually contribute to the wear and tear that will happen to the mechanical system. So this was the necessity to have a phased array. But what we achieve in the electronic scanning, So we achieve that at a given instant of time, we will be able to move the beam within a microsecond. So this is one of the major factors for which the electronics, the scanning is becoming popular in any of the radar applications. So when we declare a target, it is not that simply on the basis of just seeing the target, we declare it to be a target. So we need to do the 2 to 3 times detection confirmation, and then we will do the track initiation. Track initiation means that we will be looking for that target at a constant interval of time. In this way, we'll be able to achieve a good reaction time, and we'll be able to have a proper utilization of the resources which we have. With this, we'll be able to eliminate mechanical errors, and we can operate in multi-mode. And multi-mode means it is usually a term that has been arrived from the airborne that application. It means that we'll be having modes like from air to air, from air to sea, and from air to ground. It all depends upon what is the mode which we are looking. And the major factor to have electronic is the multi-target capability. With this, as we are able to scan the beam within a couple of microseconds, we will be able to handle multiple target at a given instant of time. So I will talk about what is the electronically scanning concept it actually means. So what happens if you have 5 antenna elements? So if we give a equal excitations to all, the field or the wavefront that is made, if it is having all the element is having equal phase, we will be getting a constructive beam that will be formed. So that will form in the far field. So far field, as you will be aware, you would have been studied in your that antenna chapters. Anything which is more than 2d square by lambda. D is the length of the what is the aperture. Lambda is what is the frequency you are transmitting. So the antenna beam is actually a vector sum of all the field contributions that will be contributing from the aperture. What happens? See, as I've discussed, that whenever we get we'll be getting a maximum energy when we are at a bore side. At a bore side means that we are at the center of the we are at the 0 degree. It means that we are at the center of the beam. Suppose if we want to have a beam to be electronically scanned, but our energy may not be that maximum. As you can see, the effective aperture has been reduced. So this will affect the gain, but we will be having a sufficient gain to get a beam steering to be done, and we will be comfortable in detecting a target. So how we achieve it? So what happens? So all the signals, one of the most important thing is that in this we need to have all the excitations at the same phase. If it is not at the same phase, the beam will not be forming constructively. There will be some distortion, and distortion will lead to there will be a lesser gain. Side lobes will increase, and your beam width also will increase. So for most things to get electronic scanning, we need to have a phase to be equal at all the antenna element. And after that, suppose we want to have any beam to be shifted, so we have to give a phase shift of 2 pi by lambda, 2 pi d by lambda into sine theta with respect to the 2 successive elements. It means that suppose if you are having a 5 elements, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we have to give a phase shift between 1 and 2 to be 2 pi d by lambda into sine theta. And for 2 to 3 also, this value has to be 2 pi d by lambda sine theta. If you are able to give this amount of phase shift to each of the element, beam will be steered and a proper beam will be formed in the space. So, as I already talked about the advantage, it is just an more overview what we achieve. We will be having a
Excuse me, sir.
simultaneously a multi-mode
Excuse me,
operations.
sir.
Excuse me, sir. The PPT is not moving.
PPT
Sir. It is
is
into
movable.
that first slide only, sir.
Yeah,
Just to move the
PPT.
PPT, sir.
I am from my end. It is moving, sir.
Sir, no,
Here
sir,
it
it
is.
is not moving. You just click it one by
Now
one.
only it is moving, sir.
Now only it is. Yes, sir.
From my end, it is moving, sir.
Okay, sir. It's not movable, sir.
Now only it has moved to advantages of ESR, sir.
Yes, sir. So right now I am at the 9th slide, ma'am.
Yeah, sir. Okay, sir.
So this is there with you?
Yeah, sir. It is there now.
Okay. So that if anything is there, you can just let me know.
Yeah, sir.
I will just see it from my end that why it is not happening. So right now I'm talking about the advantages. That advantage of electronically for electronic scaling of the beam, and what happens with the multi-mode, as I've already discussed, that we can have a multi-target acquisition. We can have track and auto reacquisition of the lost target. Suppose if any target which we have confirmed, and for a subsequent or maybe 3 to 4 times the target detection has not come, we will declare it to be a drop target. But after some time, also if the target comes, so then once again we can reinitiate it with the same ID. So this is actually the whole concept of talking about the auto reacquisition of the lost target. So these radars is usually used for the multi-missile guidance and for the passive detection. Also, passive detection means that in this we are not transmitting anything; we are only receiving. And the major advantage of having electronically scan is usually to have a large power aperture. As we have a large power aperture, it means that we'll be having a long ranges. Long ranges has to be permitted with respect to when we are seeing a target at the line of sight. And then we talk about very high power transmission capabilities, and we will be having a higher angular resolution will be also there. And I've already talked about, as this does not have a mechanical scanning, so we can have a high data rate due to a multi-beam. So we have a reliability of a system will be very high, and graceful degradation means that suppose if we are having 100 modules that are working at a time, suppose if 5 elements also goes, 5 elements are not working, it does not mean that we need to get our radars to be down. It can work, but we will be having a penalty of range. That the operator will take a call whether we need to go for maintenance or we can live with it with just a small amount of range loss. And the maintainability is always good, as with this we'll be having a minimum downtime for the repairs, and as these modules comes with the line replacement units, so simply we have to have a sufficient number of the spares. As soon as any of the line item goes off, so we can replace it with the new ones, and within some amount of hours only we will be able to get the radars to be working. And growth potential is that suppose if we made anything of 1,000 elements, in this we can increase it by 1,500 elements also, simply by increasing it. It is the restriction that comes from mechanical structure. Otherwise, we are having all the modules to be ready, and simply we will plug in and get what is the high requirement which we have. But as there is always advantage, we always will be having a disadvantage. So what happens? We will in this case we need to handle 1,000 numbers of the elements, so your complexity get increased. And when we go for the line replacement units, the cost of these items will be higher, because we need to make new products. New products has to be developed, matured to get into the system. And this also comes with we have to make a new components. That is, we need to get transmitters, and the special purpose computers. We need to have beam steering computers, which I will talk about how the beam steering computers helps in get the beam steering electronically with the help of the FPGAs, which I will be discussing in my subsequent slides. So phase shifter needs to be made, and delay devices, and we need to get a monopulse. Here monopulse means that single pulse is being transmitted. We will be able to divide the array into multiple receivers, and that can be used for tracking and for searching other radar. And we have to get a console and a display. That will be a disadvantage, but this disadvantages are not as much as whatever the advantages we have. So,
excuse me, sir.
Yes, sir.
Are you in which slide, sir?
Sir, I'm in 11 slides, sir.
Slide number, sir, simultaneous advantages of ESRS?
9th slide only it is there.
Yes.
Yes, sir. Please,
Then I will do one thing. I will move it from here only.
Yes, sir. Now only disadvantages of ESRS, sir.
Okay, then I will do it from here only. I think from here it is working.
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So when we talk about electronically scanning of the radar, we have two variants in this. We have passive phased array radars, we have active phased array radars. So there is a slight difference between passive phased and the active phased array radar. So slight difference is that we'll be having a single transmit source, but we'll be having a phase shifters to electronically scan the beam. So in this, there is a problem that happens. Suppose if the transmit unit goes off, so that our full radar goes off. So in this way, we have moved from phased array to the active phased array. I will tell you what are the advantages we get. So, but there is advantage that in this we need not to do a periodic calibration. What happens when we are having multiple units? Multiple units will have their different phase and will have path losses. So we need to calibrate that over the time, always, because there is always a wear tear that happens with the component, and there is always a failure that happens. So we need to do the periodic calibration, but in this passive phased array radar, we don't have this problem of doing the calibration. So it's a simple, but it comes at a cost that if that transmit source goes off, our radar will be down. So this is the block diagram which we have. So what happens? We'll be having exciter unit, and then we'll be having a driver, and what is the amplification is required, and that will be given to the duplexer. So that will be used for one time it will be used for the transmission, and the other time it will be used for the receiving of the beam. And there is a feed. It means that so this is that. This for feeding it to all the antenna element, and PCM means that is a so there is a phase control modules. So this is the first time there is a radar on this which we made it. We have already proved it, and there will be a phase beam steering controller. So that will be used to load the whatever the values are required to change the phase of the beam. So this I was talking about the active phased array radar. What happens in this? In this also we have two variants. One is a distributed, semi-distributed, and a fully distributed. Here semi-distributed means that there is a single source or transmit that will be given to the multiple antenna elements. Suppose if we have a one transmit module and we are giving the power to 5 antenna elements. So it becomes a semi-distributed. Suppose if you have a single element being fed from a single transmit module. So this becomes a fully distributed. So right now we are working as a fully distributed, but when we started our journey in the active phased array, we started with semi-distributed, Then we move to active phase. So a fully distributed active phased array radars. In this, we are having a control for the phase shifter and for the amplitude on each of the each antenna elements. So what happens? Phase in gain has to be error compensated over frequency and temperature. So we'll be doing a periodic calibration, and in this we need to have a continuous health monitoring for what is happening at all of the transmit and the receive module. If there is any failures based on the graceful degradation which I talked about, the operator will take a call whether we need to go for a maintenance or we can do it whatever we have with a smaller amount of range.
Yep.
So this is a block diagram. So this talks about display. We'll be having a radar controller, and there will be a radar processor that will do the prediction, and there will be a central unit that will be connected to the active phase, active array antenna unit with the beam steering unit inside the active antenna array, which I will be talking about, and there will be a cooling unit, as these units will be having a higher dissipation, and all these modules which are used in this, these are transmit amplifiers, which is having efficiency of only 30%. So altogether 70% goes off. So we need to cool a system, and we need to maintain a temperature to get a optimum results from our system. So this is now we talk about FPGA. I want to ask if anybody is having any doubts, or I can proceed further. Hello?
You can proceed, sir.
I can proceed, ma'am?
Yes, sir. You can proceed.
Okay. So I will talk about FPGA.
Doubts they'll be asking at the last, sir. At the end, they will be asking, sir.
Okay, ma'am. Because I usually give an opportunity. If anything is there, they can just discuss with me. Then we can proceed to a next topic.
Okay.
So I will talk about why FPGA is important. What happens to the FPGA? Usually we will having a serial processor. It means that every event has to be done sequentially. Suppose if anything, we need to do it parallelly. So we need to do it one by one, and we need to move to for the FPGA to have a probability to have a system to be done on a congruent basis. So people have started moving to the FPGA to achieve a more efficient design, to have a low power and a congruent behavior. So what we get from FPGA? We get from FPGA that we can have a congruent machine that will be executed in parallel. We can achieve a high speed computation as well as communication. We will definitely will be having a low power dissipation for the required function which we will be implementing in the processor based systems. And in this, interrupts can be handled more intentionally, and there will not be any problem with the latency. Usually, when we work with interrupt from a microcontroller, we will have a latency problem, and that we need to address. In this, I will tell you that we don't have a time. We have to execute all these operations within 100 microseconds effectively. So we don't have a luxury to have a latency in our system, and the FPGA will be usually support the high speed interface like LVDS. And the best part of the FPGA is that whatever the code you make, if it does not involve any of the IP codes, if you simply have a code that has been written in Visual or Verilog, it can be simply ported to any of the FPGA vendors. Right now, 3 to 4 FPGA vendors are there in the industry. The Xilinx and the Intel. Xilinx has been acquired by AMD right now. And there is a Macrosemi. Usually the Macrosemi focuses for the space world, because they come with a and diffuse technology that I will discuss. And there, the IC counts also can be reduced by implementing many things in FPGA that precisely saves the real estate. Because when we talk about board size of 32 into maybe 60 into 100 mm, so we need to have a size of the FPGA to be less and we need to perform the same function which we are required. And this also comes with a large number of IOs, and these IOs can be configurable for anything. If you want to use it for any of the interfaces like LVDTL, LVCMOS, maybe LVDS, anything can be used. You have that luxury that does not come from a microprocessor. So, what is there inside? So, it is basically a chip composed of array of logics. So, that can be configured or programmed to make any of the simple Boolean functions. And that file can be read from a configuration memory, as this thing may not be applicable. When we talk about the flash-based FPGA, this is being applicable for the SRAM-based technology, which we usually use for that all the industry uses also. And there is always a flexibility of doing the field upgradation. It means that if anything goes wrong into the field, we can simply program it with the new code. So that luxury comes. So we need not to carry so much complicated things with us to do any upgradation. And FPGA cells can be used as a building block to implement any kinds of functionality. So what is there inside? It is having a matrix of configurable logic blocks. It means that we are already having a logic block. We need to only send what we want, and with the help of the EDA tools, we will be able to configure it for what functions which we want. There will be a input-output blocks, and these blocks, all these CLBs and the IO blocks will be connected with the help of the programmable interconnects. It means that whatever the interconnection is there between these blocks can be programmed. It does not means that we will not be able to configure. We can always be able to configure for anything, and these also come from these also have a PLL. It is to have a clocking and to have a block RAM. Just a minute, I will just take this call. Hello. That thing I've already done. I will come to you maybe around 2 o'clock. Thank you. Sorry for the disturbance. So it will be having a PLL. It will have a block RAMs and the DSP and the trans receivers. It means that whatever we want to have a SEDES communication also we can do. It means that we can run it at a speed of 2.2 Gbps, 2.5 Gbps, and we have started using up to 10 Gbps also with the help of the FPGA. So these are the transceiver that helps us. So there are basically 2 types of FPGAs. One is the SRAM based FPGA. So SRAM means that static random access memory based FPGA. The data will be stored at the SRAM, and as you're aware of the static RAM, whenever there is a power off happens, so whenever there is a power off happens, it always goes off. So we need to have some configuration memories that whenever the boot up happens, we should be able to boot this SRAM based cells. For that, we'll be using a PROMs or maybe flashes, and for the industry which is using this, it is Altera. Altera has been acquired by Intel right now, and Xilinx is also been acquired by AMD. There is a lattice. So there is a non-volatile memory, whatever we call it to be a flash memory. So in this, we will be having a one-time programmable. It means that only one time we can program. So there is a high level of accuracy is required to program it. if we have not taken care at the level when we are doing our coding and what are the functionalities and whatever intended to be done, if we are not able to do this, then that chip need to be replaced. So if any chip need to be replaced, it comes at a cost, time. So when we use it, usually we will be using it for the final thing. When we have done all the testing, we are ready for the any of the market production. Then only we'll be using a one-time removal. But usually at the level of when we start our development, we will be doing with SRM based FPGAs only. But when we complete our FPGA design, everything has been proven. Everything has been proven in the field also. When we are going for the production, we can replace it with a non-volatile memory, and that is having your advantage. It will be having a small size, and power will be less. So in this, we are having industry, or that is Actel, QuickLogic, and Lattice. What are the actual features which we are looking for? We always look for a number of logic elements. What are there in FPGA? And size of the entire logic elements also plays a very important role, because that only gives us that how that array control logic will be implemented. And the size of block RAM and how many number of block RAMs are there inside of the FPGA. And then how many clocks we can take, and then how many clocks we can use it. And the number of DCM, that is a digital clock managers, are available to implement any clocks that can be derived from the master clock which we are getting it from this place. And how this number of IOs, after interconnection of all the peripherals, and we are always looking for a very low power consumption. So up to this, I have completed the FPGA based and the phased array. So from this, I will talk about how the array controllers are being made and how the beam steering will be done at the level of the digital receiver. So first, I will talk about what are the architectures and what are the schemes being used, and then we'll talk about how these things have been implemented at our place, and then I'll talk about the new technologies. I would like to give a 10 minutes of break, and then we can continue from this slide. Ma'am?
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay.
I will just come in 10 minutes.
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dear participants, I have received the material from sir, scientist. So after the program, it will be shared with you. I will share the presentation with you. So I think it may be very useful. So please, everybody, utilize the session positively. I hope you can get lot of things. If you have any queries, please message chat. You give the chat message, then we will ask sir to, we will get the solution for that. Okay.
Sir started presenting, sir. Palaniswamy, sir.
Madam,
No,
sir has taken a break, madam. He'll be
Okay,
coming
sir.
short while. Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Okay, sir. Okay.
So I can start, sir.
Yes, sir. Everybody
ma'am.
are ready. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So everybody is there. So I will talk about the array controller right now. So what we are intended to do in the array controller, we need to have a real-time phase control and the alternator and the TR switch control that will be controlling the transmit and the receive path. And we have to configure the active array for the operational mode. We have to make it for byte and calibration, and then we need to control the directional jamming mode. We need to configure for a different beam shaping to have a different amplitude distribution, and then we will have a protection of TR modules with respect to the thermal. Suppose if the temperature of the board goes very high, we need to raise the alarm, and then we need to cut off whatever the RF is going to the TR module, so that our TR modules are being protected from anything that is happening due to the RF. And for this, we need to continuously do the health monitoring with respect to the TX power, what is the temperature, DC voltages, as we will be having different DC voltages ranging from 1 volt to 5 volt and to 28 volt also. And sometime we are having a 50 volt also. And then a TR pulse. And this always gives us what is happening at each of the TR module level. This helps in the maintenance and doing the troubleshooting at place. Right now, so in this, I will talk about what are the architectures we can have. So array controllers can have two types of architectures, can have a centralized or can have a distributed architectures. So a centralized means that we'll be having high speed controller that will be communicating with the radar controller, and there will be some interface carded, so that will be controlling the TR module phase shifter. What happens in this? We'll be having a single central controller. So there is always a chance of 1 point failure that can happen.
Your voice is not audible, sir.
Hello?
Sir, your voice is not audible, sir.
Just a minute. Right now it is audible, ma'am?
It is audible, sir.
Yeah, ma'am.
Yeah,
I'll
sir,
continue.
now it is audible.
So what happens?
Now you are in
what
26th
happens?
slide, sir.
Ma'am, 25th, ma'am.
Yeah, okay.
25th only, ma'am. Yeah. So what happens for the centralized array controller architectures? We will have a single central controller. So this may contribute to single point failure. In this, we will be having a more wire complexity. Suppose we are having 1,000 numbers of TR modules, and we need to control all the phase shifters. The phase shifters will be around 6 to 7 bits. So we will be having 7,000 lines. So then it makes the wiring very, very complex. And in this, we will not be able to achieve our beam switching time. And beam switching time in this will range from 1 millisecond to anything. But we are looking in the range of maybe 100 to 200 microseconds. So these architectures are usually equivalent in the passive phased array radar or for a small size active arrays. In this, we'll be doing a row column addressing. So we have already implemented into one of the two radars. So one is the Rajendra, other one is the Shresa. So we have another architecture that is called distributed. In this, we will be distributing all of the what are the things we need to perform at the array controller to different levels. Suppose first level will be with the from the outside world, maybe on Ethernet link, as here the latency is not so critical. But when we communicate between the different levels of the computers from the controller, so we'll be working on the LVDS interface, and these LVDS will be then we can have 2 to 3 levels depending upon the requirement and what are the functions which we need to perform at a different level. So all these levels will be performing their task, and in this way we will be able to get a parallel and a congruent way of computing the values required for the phase shifters for 1,000 number of TR module, and in this we will be able to achieve. We have already achieved a beam switching time ranging from 100 to 200 microseconds, and we in this approach will always have a modularity. Suppose if anything happens to any of the modules, that can be simply replaced, and once again the system will be up. Usually for these communications we are following a serial communication just because to have to reduce the number of lines. Suppose if we want to communicate to maybe 20 numbers of second level controllers, and we need to send maybe 16 bit of data. So you think that how many lines will be required? So with the serial communication, we are able to reduce the number of lines, and this also helps us in reducing the wire complexity. So this is one of the distributed architectures which we have implemented in one of the SAM projects, that is surface to air missile program. In this, we are having 4 arrays being controlled with the help of the array controllers, which we have implemented with the help of the distributed architecture, which I have talked about. So I just want to give you a complexity numbers. So we were having 960 radiating elements were there for 960 transmit receive modules. Altogether, we required 14 control lines and 7 status lines. So these altogether comes to 21. And when you multiply these lines with 960, so we'll require a odd numbers of 20k lines that has to be routed, or we have to do the wiring. So this is the level of wire complexity which I was talking about. So we were having a requirement that we need to have a frame time of 12 seconds, dwell time of 1 millisecond to 20 milliseconds, and we should be able to perform an operation for the low PRF at a 1.5 millisecond to 3 millisecond, and we were having a calibration dwell of 0.2 to 1 millisecond. And based on this, we have calculated that we will require a switching time of 200 microseconds. So this is one of the architectures which we followed in one of the previous program, which has been recognized from the organization. Also, we were having a central unit. In that, we were doing all the phase computations. At that level, we were having a processor. From there, we were generating all the timing signals from the FPGA, and then we were distributing it to the group level controller that was doing all the computation, rest of the computation that is required, and then transmitting it to the TR module controllers, and each of the TR module controllers was controlling 2 of the TR transmit receive modules. In this way, we were able to control. With this architecture, we were able to reduce our wire complexity from 20k to 100 wires only, and we were able to achieve have achieved the beam switching time of 200 microseconds. So I will explain that how we have calculated that this we will be able to switch the beam within 200 microseconds. As RC will be sending some data to the front end processor at a 1 GPU data rate, that may require that will require around 10 microseconds. Then we will be computing the PAPP and CRC, and then sending this 18-bit to the group level controllers, and the total delay will be 21 microseconds. And from GC, it will be broadcast to all of the TR modules, and altogether it will be 12 microseconds. From 12 microseconds, we'll be computing it and recalling all these errors and adding it and doing all the computations. So this will take another 20 microseconds. And after this, we will be sending a status back to the front end processor that we have received the data and we have calculated. We are ready to apply these values to the antenna element. So all this process will take another 120 microseconds, and then within 1 microsecond we'll be able to switch the beam after the reception of the startup bus. So when you calculate all these times, we'll be having a 184 microsecond, which we have achieved exactly in this way. And for this to achieve, we have used a double buffer concept. In that, we'll be getting a data. Data will be stored. It will not be applied on the reception of the SPB. These data will be applied to the actual phase shifters that will be used for the transmission and for the reception. And we have made our custom built UART. Usually the industry works on 8-bit. We have made our custom built UART of 16-bit. In this way, we were able to achieve 400 microsecond on each of the word transmission of 16-bit. So that has helped also to achieve this value of 184 microsecond. And we are working on a 5 Mbps, but as we have already moved to a 10 to 20 Mbps data rate for our other projects also. So just to give you an idea what happens in the TR module controller, which I already talked about right now. So we'll be getting a clock. And these are the synchronous clock that is coming. There is a SDI, mean that we'll be having a serial data in, and there will be serial data out. And then there will be a beep controller that will come, and from this LVDA serial to parallel conversion will happen. Then we'll give it to the buffer on the basis of the SOB. With the help of the mux, we'll be able to switch these values from the buffer to from this buffer to the current buffer, and that current buffers will be having a receive and the transmit value, and that will be switching with the help of the mux by on the reception of the TR pulse. So in this way, the process and what are the timings and how the things have been done from upon the reception to the actual phase shifting, that will steer the beam electronically in the space. How we are doing it? So how I just want to give you. So this is the 960 element which I talked about. We were having 40 elements in the X direction. We were having 24 elements in the Y direction. So altogether it comes to 960 elements for array. So this is the controller timing which I have recently talked about. It actually talks about how the signals get transmitted. Whenever there is a search dual command comes, on that basis will the first controllers will be generating a serial clock. On the reception of the serial clock on each of the falling edge, we will be sending our data to the respective controllers, and the respective controllers will be performing their intended functions, and on the basis of the SOB, the data will be transferred from the next buffer to the current buffer, and from current buffer it will be having a phase and the alternation values for the transmit as well as for the receive. So on the reception of PRT, so this will happen, and once again the status also happens in this way. So from the status will come from the bottom level controller to the next level controller, and then it will be given to the next, and then all the consolidated data will be given to the radar controller, and from radar controller it will be given to the display for any action to be taken if any abnormal activities has been detected. So what we do, we are also having amplitude control. How we are doing it? We are doing it because as we are having XY direction, so we need to have an amplitude control for X and Y. What we do, we take a product of the distribution values for X and Y, and these values will be updated at the lookup tables in the FPGA, and usually these operations we are doing at the level of second level controller, so that this is the place only where actual phase computation that happens, and from that phase computation we'll be adding these values to get a required phase shift as well as whatever the amplitude distribution we want at the aperture, and these values will be given to the TR module. From there it will be loaded to all of the phase shifters and the alternators that will steer and to get the required side lobe which we require from the aperture. So this I've already talked about. This is just a mathematical expression. Whatever I was talking about, I'm always talking about the far field, because there is the useful energy that will be used for radar transmission will be from the far field only. It can't be from the near field. So that is where all these equations is valid for the far field. And what are the phase computation? And as I told you that we are having X and Y direction. So we'll be having a one phase shift we need to apply for the X direction. We will be having a phase shift that need to be applied at the Y direction also. So what we do as a phase, we'll be adding this phase, and these phase values will be applied to the phase shifters to steer the beam in the X direction as well as in the Y direction. So for this purpose, we are using only one phase shifter. We are not using two phase shifters for XY direction. So this is the way we are able to steer the beam both in the X direction as well as in the Y direction with the help of the single phase shifters for each of the TR modules. So I have already talked about what we do. Just an overview that at what level we can do the phase computation. we are having different methods at what level we can do. So what happens that if you want to do the phase computation at the lowest level, if you're doing it at the lowest level, then mean computation and compensation will be at the TR module level. A distribution of the data will happen, and we will be having a memory requirement, and we need to get a location of the TR module to calculate the phase values. So it is usually suited for large size arrays, which is having a multiple TR module package in a single unit. Suppose if we want to do a computation at another level, then during the decoding level, decoding at the element level, it makes the hardware simple, and it is highly suitable for the small size array. Here small and large is only depends upon the perception. For anybody, large can be 100. For anybody, 1,000 can be a 1,000 can be a small size. It's just a representation which I wanted to present. Suppose if you're doing a phase computation at the middle level, then also we will be able to compute all the values. This will achieve, and the decoding will be done at the element level, because these phase values will phase computation always depends upon the location of the element in the array. So that we need to always have a track of where is the element and for which we are calculating it. So that is why decoding is always required. So we can have a different interfaces. We can have asynchronous also. We can have a synchronous. We are having a asynchronous just because we want to reduce the wire complexity. Suppose if we want to have a synchronous, so then we need to have one clock line that need to be run. So we are able to achieve whatever the required functionality and the requirement we were able to meet. So that is why we have gone with the asynchronous. And usually the synchronous communication is recommended for the board-to-board transfer within the board only. Within the board only, it is not at the between the different units. Suppose if you are having two chips inside a single board, we always go with the synchronous. But suppose if you want to have any communication that we want to do it at the level of two units, so we always prefer to go with the asynchronous. Simply just because we will be having a low wire complexity, and it also depends upon what is the speed we are looking. Asynchronous only supports up to 20 megahertz. Suppose if we want to have a more than 20 Mbps data rate, so we will be forced to go with synchronous protocol. But usually it is we are working up to a 10 Mbps data rate, so we are preferring to go with a low wire complexity. Parallel is usually recommended for the shorter distance. We'll have a high speed. We'll be having a multiplexing lines, and a wire complexity will depend upon number of bits which we want to parallel. Suppose if you want to have 1,000 number of bits need to be parallel, so we'll be having a wire complexity of 100. Suppose if you want to have only 4 numbers of bits to be parallel, so we'll be having 4 wires only. So your complexity will be reduced. So we can have different wires that so it can be single-ended, it can be differential. Usually we will be single-ended will always have interference. It is usually suited for the shorter distance and for a lower speed. It is not recommended for the high speed just because there will be a noise pickup, and if there is a noise, there is always a chance of the data to be corrupted. So wherever there is a distance is more, and wherever we want to have a high speed, we will always go with the differential signals. It varies from RS422 to RS485. LVDS is a low voltage differential signal. LV pickle means low voltage, a positive emitter coupled logic, and a CML means a current monitoring logic. So with this, we'll always in this we'll be increasing the wire complexity by 2, but we'll be getting a higher speed, and we'll be able to transmit it to a longer distance, as this is having a noise immunity within itself. So sometimes we can adopt a bus topologies also. We can have a multi-top. It means that we'll be having a one Rx and a multiple Rx. One TX and multiple Rx. In this way, we will be able to reduce the lines. This will be having a less interconnect. We'll be having a few PCB traces. We'll be having impedance matching, and we can have multi-point also. We can have multiple transmit and a multiple receive. But this is having a problem that one transaction can happen at a time. We can't have a multiple transactions can happen on the line. So we usually go with a point to point RS422, as we want to ensure that the data is always reached, because we are working in a system critical. We can't afford to have any data to be lost. So in this, we'll be having a one transmit and one receive to make a full duplex. It will be having a highest cost, and as I've told that we'll be using a point to point. So that means that how many numbers of point we are having, we need to wire it. So this will increase our wire complexity, and it will be more expensive also, because as we will be using more numbers of drivers in the receiver, so cost implication will be there. So addressing also plays a very important role. We can have a static addressing. What we have done it in one of the program, that we have addressed the lowest level of the module with the address. What happens with this? The problem happens, the operator or maybe the person who is doing the maintenance, he need to remember the number, and we need to hard code that number inside the FPGA. So that always creates a problem when we are going for the replacement. So to come out from this problem, we have implemented a dynamic loading. It means that whatever the number is there, whenever there is a boot up happens, there will be a configuration command that will be issued from the front end controller to all of the controllers to get them the numbers. And suppose if any failure happens, that failures happens, and then we need to do the maintenance. Maintenance is always done when the radar is down. Whenever there is a power on happen, so this sequence is always repeated. So this helps us in always establishing a link between the modules, and will not be losing their numbers. So that also helps in getting the maintenance of the system to be higher, and we need not to carry an additional hardware to program. We can have a simple single program bit files that can be loaded to any of the controllers. So this helps in getting a dedicated link for the transmit and receive. And we are also in a process of establishing a daisy chain. A daisy chain means that we'll getting a one input. That output will be connected to the input of the another TR module, and the output of that module will be connected to the another. So in this way, suppose if we want to program 1,000 number of the TR module, we will be able to program simply by doing the clicking of the button. So this we are in a process of doing it, but maybe in another 1 or 2 years we will be able to establish this. This will help us in doing the maintenance at a much higher speed as we are doing it for the dynamic. So you can imagine the time. Suppose if we need to do a reprogram for 1,000 modules, so that will take a sufficient amount of time. With the daisy chaining, we will be able to achieve within a half an hour that all the TR modules will be programmed, as this process will be automated. So always, when we make any system, we need to follow some qualification criteria to get our system to be qualified. See, we are working in and these things are made for the defense application. So we need to have the reliability of the system of higher standard. So we usually follow for the firmware design a DO254 level C. And what we do first we do a requirement capture, whatever the requirement comes, we will be capturing it. What are the speed is required, what is the beam switching time is required, we'll be getting it from the system group, and on that basis we'll be deciding that how many levels is required to make a for the array control. It can be 3 levels, it can be 4 levels, sometimes it can be 5 levels also, and sometimes it can be 2 levels also. So that comes from a requirement capture. Then we will be having a traceability matrix, because always there should be some traceability that if anything happens, so we should be able to trace out that, okay, what is the problem that that would have happened, and this we need to have it with us till the end of the life of the product or design. So usually it is a very challenging task, but anyhow we have to do it, so we are doing it. And what we do, we usually do for hierarchical design, because we will be having a maybe 3 to 4 people will be there in the team, and each individual will be given a particular design module. So he will make the test bench, and we will be doing the functional simulation, and that will be followed by the optimization, and that will help us in doing the partitioning, and this will help us to have an optimization that will be able to achieve a higher speed, because the speed also do matter in the digital design. Digital design, people always cry for the speed and to have a low power consumption. Low power consumption is also very important, but we should not be having it at the cost of the speed. Speed is the foremost thing, and then comes the area, and then comes the low power. Power is also very important, but suppose if the system requires the speed to be higher, so we need to work it for the speed. Then we have to see that how these things can be reduced to get our power to be under control. But always there is a speed that plays a very important role. Then we'll be having all these modules will be integrated, and then we'll do a functional simulation for the full projects. Then we'll do the optimization once again do it, but in this we'll not be having so much scope of the optimization, because whatever the module which you have made and whatever the optimization which you have achieved, so this will restrict. But anyhow, we'll try to achieve whatever we can achieve in this, and then we'll do a synthesis. Synthesis what it does, it makes the code optimized. Suppose by mistake you would have not thought about that some signals you may not be using it, but it may be there. So this is the job of the synthesis, to make the code, what is the logic design which you have written, to be optimized with respect to that particular device. So this will be done, and we can give a constraints. We can give a constraint of time. We can give a constraint of area, and on that basis, it will be doing in this level only. It will be doing a static timing analysis. So that is very important to know what is the speed we will be getting it when we do this synthesis. And then last, after doing all this, then we'll do the post synthesis to check whether our functionality is still maintained or not. Sometimes happens that you would have used some signal for some purpose, and synthesis tool is thinking that this thing has not been used. So that will be trimmed out as a part of the optimization. When this happens, so our functionality may not be reached. So then we need to reassure. This is the way of doing the equivalence checking at the level of what we were supposed to get it and what we are getting it after the post synthesis. Then we need to close the timing. Suppose if we are intended to have a 200 megahertz, our design should work, and if we are not able to achieve, suppose we are getting only a 180 megahertz is the speed, so we need to do a lot to achieve that. So meaning of a timing closure is that only we need to get whatever the timing which we were intended to get from the design, we should be able to get it. After doing all this process, as you can see, this will be a very iterative process, very much iterative. So we need to do many times. Sometime we will not be getting a functional to be met, or sometime we may not be getting a timing to be done. So we do a lot of iterations at this level. This helps us to get our design to be to achieve the functionality as well as the timing which we were intended to do. And after doing this, we will be doing the bitwise generation. bit file means that whatever will be loaded to the FPGA to perform that testing, and then the last comes the hardware. After these, before this, everything was done without the. So this is not being done on the silicon. It is done on the actually on the computers, and from computers we are doing all the simulation. Now the actual hardware comes. Then once again we check what are the functionalities which we have done, it is being achieved or not, and whether we are still able to achieve our timing requirement. Usually, if we are able to achieve whatever I've discussed, the post synthesis and the timing closure, usually this does not go anyways, but we need to verify it, which we do it on the hardware. Usually what happens, we'll be having 1,000 number of modules. We can't do this testing of this hardware testing each and everything. So what we do, we will be having, we'll making automated tests. A test equipment will be made, and on that we'll be giving our bit files, and that bit files will be loaded, and that will be tested for each of the test vectors that will confirm that our functionality as well as the timing requirement has been met. So this is the qualification which we follow, and with this we are able to achieve that timing as well as the functionality of each of the logic units. So with this, I have completed my whatever the theory was there. Right, with this I will be talking about the case study. So we were having a case study that we wanted to implement a 96 element active array antenna unit for one of the surface to air missile program. So what we were having objectives that we need to make a 96 element active phased array radar. In this, we were intended to have a beam steering of plus minus 45 degree as well as plus minus 50 degree in the elevation. We were having a requirement that we should be able to achieve a beam switching within 200 microsecond, and we should be, and in this we are using LVDA serial link, and we were using a point-to-point interface. And in this, as I've told you, it depends upon what are the hierarchy which we want to have it, and whatever the requirement is there. On the basis, we will be deciding that how many numbers or levels will be required for the array controller to achieve the required requirement is met. And we were having one more side load level control to have a 45 dB level with a different amplitude or distribution. So this is a block diagram. We were having a C band QTRM. QTRM means that this is having a 4 TR module to be packaged in a single. So altogether we were having a 24 QTRMs that has been controlled from QCC. Each QCC means so this is a QTRM group controller and controlling six numbers of QTRMs, and this QTRM group controllers were being controlled from the quadrant level controller because we wanted to divide our full aperture into 4 so that we will be able to achieve a monopulsing that will help us in doing the tracking as well as the searching of the radar. And this timer booster is just a controller that is being used, and for the RF level it was boosting the RF, whatever the losses which we will be having it when we go from 2 levels of chain, as the CQTRM requires 0 level dBm at the input to perform the required level which is required for the transmission. So all this application was being done here, and we were having a BSN controller that was interacting with the radar controller. So these are the elements, these are the hardware which we have realized in the process of establishing this 96 element. So which I talked about, this timer booster controller. This is only the controller card. This was also having RF module, which I have not shown. That was not the part of the digital, so that is the reason. This is the quadrant controller. We were controlling 4 numbers. As I'm telling you, we were discussing about the 960 element, but as we were having 1/10, And this is 1/10 of that. So that is why we have reduced the number of element, but we have maintained that we should be able to establish our chain. And we were having a QTRM that is having a 4 TR module to be packaged in a single QTRM, and we were having a QC that is controlling 6 QTRMs. So we were having an implementation approach, just to give an idea that what we have implemented. So for this, QC was just behaving like a transparent. There was a purpose for the RF to be made into 4 quadrant receiver. That is why the QC was required. Otherwise, QC would have not been required. What we do, so we'll be getting a data from the radar controller, and then we'll be having a phase gradients, and these phase gradient values will be forwarded to the QTRM group controller. In this, we'll be having a frequency command also. We'll be having amplitude command, and in this level, we will be doing a status collection also from QC, and that all things will be forwarded to the radar controller to take an appropriate decision. And what is the job of the QTM group controller is to calculate the required phase values, read whatever the amplitude distribution we need to apply, and forward all this data based on the mode command to be given to the QTRM controller. And it is one more job is to collect the status from all the QTRM and forwarded it to the QCC. Then after doing this, and the job of the QTRM controller is to receive the following data, is to do the phase and automation for the transmit and the receive, to have it for the operational mode command, and to have the frame status and the forward it to the QCC. So all these are the functions that has to be performed. So I just want to tell you that how we have achieved it. So there was a link speed between RC and the SBBS from the stem booster. What we have done in this, we have not used a Ethernet. We were using a 50 Mbps radar rate. So at that, we were able to achieve 1.92 microsecond. There was a computation table bytes reading of 15 microsecond. From 100 bytes, we were sending it to the SBC, to the QCC, that is the QTRM group controller, at a rate of 50 Mbps. That was taking 60 microsecond. And then we were computation time was around 25. Then from QTRM group controller, we were sending it to the QTRM controller 260 bytes of data at a rate of 20 Mbps. So we were having a 104 microsecond. QTRM logic setting time was 15 microsecond, and the total data transfer time was 121.92. Altogether, we were using it 176.92 microsecond. With this, we were able to achieve, we have reduced the beam switching time, as well as we have used the distributed and the modular and the scalable architecture. So what I talked about, so this is the functionality which we have implemented, just to give an overview that we'll be getting a frequency values, the azimuth and the elevation, and these are the values that will be calculated. PA, which I talked about, it is for the X direction, and PB is actually for the Y direction. Then we'll be calculating the checksum for each of the PA and PB, and these values will be transferred to the QTRM, send it to the QCC, and the status will be received and by the QCC, and it will be given to the radar controller. That will be having a graphical user interface to show what is happening at the level of the lowest level of the hierarchy. This we have realized, these modules which I am showing you, it is a custom built FPGA based board. So a QTRM group controller which I was talking about, we were working at a 50 megahertz this FPGA based. So this is just to give you an idea that what we do. There is a phase control module which we have implemented in VSDL. With this, in this we were able to achieve a single decimal point accuracy with the level of the computation with the algorithm which we have implemented. So this has helped us of not using a floating point in any of the FPGA design. So this has helped us to get our resource consumptions to go down, and to increase our speed. So whatever the logic you implement at the FPGA level, it always there is a penalty that you have to pay. You have to pay a penalty of the resource will be consumed, as well as you will be sacrificing some of the speed. So you need to have a balance between what you want. You need to have a balance of the speed as well as of the requirement to be met. So for most thing is to meet the requirement, keeping in mind the speed requirement also. So with this, we were able to achieve a resource utilization also very less, and we were able to achieve a speed of whatever we intended to have it. So in this, we have implemented a multiple UART. So that is a universal asynchronous receiver and transmitter so that we will be having a less status collection time, because multiple UART means that multiple values from the 6 QTRM can sit at the UART level, and these values can be done at an instant. All the 6 QTRM can send us the status to us. In this way, we will be able to get our status collection to be done in terms of milliseconds only. But this will not be affecting anything for the transmission. We are already having a very dedicated line right from the bottom level to the higher controller that will always receive a status without disturbing the actual transmission that is happening. So always we are knowing what is happening at the level of all the levels of the controller. So this helps us in know that what would have gone wrong if anything has gone wrong at a moment of instance. So in this way, we are able to achieve a low wiring complexity. And the last level, which I have already discussed with you, this is the QTRM group control that receives a command from the QTRM controller, that receives a command from the QCC, and we are already having a LVDS receiver and the transmitter that has been connected to the FPGA, and we are having so many numbers of control line and the status. With this architecture can receive any command from reset to single module on, and that will be used for the calibration purpose. SOB calibration data and the retrieval from the flash memory is also given, so that we will be able to minimize our calibration that may be due to the path difference and due to the component that has been placed. And with this, we will be able to get a status also to be reported with respect to the DC supplies. We will be having a transmit power, temperature, and the module number, and the checksum will be also transmitted, so that we know what is happening at each level. We usually don't have a radar controller to be given to us at these teams. Things will be done by individual teams. So what we do, we always make a graphical user interface, which will be very exclusive to do the checking of our controllers. So this is one of the snapshot which we have developed a graphical user interface. This has been done on a VC++, so that we always have independency from the radar controller. We need not to depend on the other team to check our systems. So usually what I prefer to have our system, so that we can clear our doubts and we can get our things to be done. Then we can integrate these systems with the actual radar system. So this GUI is having a lot of features, that it is having a program reset. It can send a program reset on the basis of the program. There is a small FPGA that has been also been sitting in the TESIC that will generate the required timings, and it can generate the PAVP and communication link monitoring. It can do the testing of the TR module, so that we are always aware that what we want to do it, and this can also receive the status monitoring as well as do the flash programming. So these are some results which we have achieved. So I was talking about the collimation. As collimation means that we are always intending to have all the modules to come to equal phase. And what happens when you do the switch on? These modules will not be at equal phase and will not be at a same amplitude. So what we do, we we perform a collimation with the help of the controller, which we have discussed, with the RF team also to be involved. And from there, we'll be collimating it. Collimating means that we will be getting all the phase to be equivalent. When you can see, all the phase has come to the same equal phase and the amplitude also. And whatever you've seen that 4 modules are not having the same color, it means that there is some problem. So we need to address it. And after doing this addressing, and I have already talked about the amplitude distribution that has happened. Amplitude distribution happens. In this, we have applied a Taylor distribution of 35 dB. And you can see that there is amplitude tapering which we applied. So there is a tapering of 35. It means that all the module center will not be having any alternation. And the last module will be having the maximum alternation of 17.5 dB. But there will not be any effect on the phase. And you can see this is the radiation pattern which we have got it from our testing range. We are able to steer the beam. Azimuth means this is x direction of 15 degree, and elevation means it is y direction of 15 degree. So you can see that we are able to move the beam electronically at an angle of 15 degrees in x and a 15 degree of y. So with this, I am concluding my talk on the array controller. Now I will talk about the new technologies which we can do, which we right now we have started implementing it, but we have not able to get a product right now. Maybe within 1 or 2 years of time we will be able to achieve all, maybe some of the things. We are in the process of doing the digital radar right now, a DBF and a digital TR module. In that, will not be having no phase shifters and the alternations. That will be done at the level of the processor only, and we'll be implementing different DDS, and the IQ weighting is required so that we will be having we'll be able to have a digital TR module. So we are having a plan to do the beam steering with the help of the DBF network. I think this is the future. We have started implementing it. Maybe within 1 or 2 years, we have already got one project sanctioned. We are in the process of making it. So next challenge will come to get all things to be transferred to the optical interface. And optically, if we are able to achieve, so we will be able to achieve much more speed. So we have started looking into it, but it will take another maybe 5 to 10 years to mature this technology. So this is so these things we have started implementing it into the memo radars, maybe for the MFCR. So that is for the LRSAM, and this so this is one of the pictures which I have taken it from the symposium. You can see that this is having a 7,000 phase shifters. That is having a height of 35 foot, and some right now this thing has been reduced with the size relative if you are able to achieve optical phased array. So you can see the size has been reduced to 4 centimeter array. So in this it is having a 10,000 phase shifters. So with this we will be able to achieve more enhanced functionality and the mission flexibility that microwave brought to the RF system. So this will be able to achieve with the help of the optical phased array radar. Thank you. If any questions are there, I will be very grateful of answering it. Hello?
Dear participants, if you have any queries, please ask or chat. Par is waiting for you. Anybody? Please chat or get into the screen and talk. Please chat. Anybody have any queries? Otherwise, you please stop.
Yes, students, unmute your mic and you can ask the questions, please. Post your queries in the chat box.
If you could not able to talk, then you please chat to post your message.
Hello, sir.
Tell madam.
Yes, ma'am.
So the TRM controller, you were discussing about TRM controller.
Yes, ma'am.
That is the array antenna array designing, or it can be used for other purpose also, sir.
Ma'am, it can be used for any purpose. So as we are using FPGA, na ma'am. So FPGA
yes,
means
sir,
that we can use it for any purpose. Right now, I'm only presented one of the forms which we have done it for the array control, for the TR module controller. You can use it for anything. You can use it for remote control also. So FPGAs,
yes, sir. Tell me, sir.
ma'am, FPGAs are being used for the power sequencing also right now.
Okay, sir. So this TRM controller is implemented on FPGA, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, now I got the point, sir. Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you.
Sir, have you applied for patents, sir?
Yes, we have already applied one patent for the phase computation, which we have talked about.
Okay.
We are about to get a patent on that.
Okay. For this one, sir, for this particular topic?
No, no, we have not applied particularly for this, but we have applied for the what is the algorithm which we have implemented it. For
Okay,
that, we have already applied.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Excuse me, sir. Sir,
Yes.
if at all we want to do some simulation in lab experiment for students, means, can you please tell us any tool for that one, sir?
For what?
For conducting a lab for students, sir. Free tools.
See, there are some free tools are there. So usually when I was doing my MTech from IIT Madras, so there was a tool for the Verilog. So that I will share with sir, with Pallan sir, and on that you can do whatever you want to do it. But you will be able to do only the simulation part only. You will not be able to do the synthesis. For synthesis, you need to get all the PDKs. PDKs are basically the libraries. You will be getting it from the foundry. And that is very specific to the foundry. Suppose if you're doing it for Xilinx, so you need to get a PDK from there. Suppose if you're doing it for the from the Intel, so you need to get that libraries. So up to the functional simulation, you will be able to do it. But after that, you need to get all that tools. And if your college is having a Xilinx tool, in that you can do everything. That Xilinx tool is ISC. Right now, people are working with the Vivado. So that is for the latest series of the FPGA, which we are working.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. Thank you.
Any other participants?
Or do you want to seek any help from sir also? You can ask regarding your project. regarding your future work. Like that, if you want anything, you please ask. Students, you please chat. We will be asking sir how to utilize his knowledge for your development. If you have any doubt also, you please ask. Or shall we end the session, dear participants? Shall we go for the ending? Okay.
Okay, thank you, sir.
For your valuable time.
Just a minute, sir.
Okay, sir.
I request Dr. N. Lakshmipathy, sir, Professor and Head of the Department of EEE, to give the vote of thanks.
Hello, is it audible?
Yes, sir. Audible, sir.
Okay. A very good morning to you all. I take my privilege to present the vote of thanks. This is Dr. N. Lakshmipathy, Professor and Head of the Department, Electrical and Electronic Engineering. I thank our beloved President, Dr. T. Venkatvardan, for providing a very good infrastructure and platform to continue such program. I thank the IET Chairman and the team, Bengaluru, for providing IET professional body to our institution and to conduct such program. We thank you, sir. I, on behalf of the trust and the college, I thank the speaker and the resource person, Mr. Amit Goyal, Scientist E, LRDE, Bengaluru, for readily accepting our invitation to deliver one-day online webinar on FPGA-based array controller for active phased array radar, jointly conducted by Electronics and Communication Engineering and Electrical and Electronic Engineering departments. We thank you, sir. I thank our principal, Dr. Sayadari, for encouragement to conduct such webinar. We thank you, sir. I thank our vice principal, Dr. H.G. Shenai, for all his support. We thank you, sir. I thank our Dean Administration, Professor Rukmani Divakaran, for our guiding support. We thank you, madam. I thank Professor Vijay Bharti, Head of the Department, Electronics and Communication Engineering, for arranging such a webinar jointly with Electrical and Electronic Engineering Department. Thank you, madam. I thank all the IET organizing committee and the coordinators for their support to conduct such webinar. I thank all the participants, faculty members, students for their involvement in this IETE sponsored one-day online webinar on FPGA-based array controller for active phased array radar. I once again thank you one and all. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Now,
Thank you, sir, so much.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you so much for giving me an opportunity to deliver a lecture. I hope that I am able to justify the things which we were doing at our place, and hope that the student will be able to get a feel that what people do in FPGA and how the FPGAs are being used in the industry. Thank you to all of you, sir.
sir, one more thing, sir. We seek your help for our students'